So guys, with the launch of this act, roaming supers did get quite a few buffs, and in today's video I have a build here taking advantage of StormDancer's. Now I know that this one hasn't been a popular super in terms of PvE stuff, but with this forgotten about exotic armor piece, it does actually turn StormDancer's into quite a good ad clearing option, and kind of flips how you actually are meant to play this game, which is normally you save your super for like damage bosses and then use your other weapons for ad clear. Kind of flips that and makes it so that you're using your super for just complete ad clear, and then you're able to use your weapons for more damage boss scenarios, which I found quite interesting. So let's first go over what the exotic armor piece is. This is of course the StormDancer's brace, which I'm probably sure all of you forgot about even exists in this game. So its main perk is called Ascending Amplitude, where each target you defeat with StormDancer increases the damage you deal with that super and refunds super energy when your StormDancer ends. So if using this effectively, you're able to get a max of half your super energy back with each activation of StormDancer, which inside of Contest of Elders is very easy to go and do. Inside of activities where there aren't as many ads, you might be running into difficulty there with trying to get your supers back as quickly. But in terms of most endgame activities, you shouldn't be running into many problems there. Now for the overall subclass build, I'm of course using Prismatic Warlock. We have the StormDancer's super here, obviously because it's a StormDancer's build, and then for the main abilities I have Phoenix Dive, and then Arcane Needle and Storm Grenade, as well as Feed the Void and Hellion. Now the one thing in terms of main abilities that could probably be changed would be Hellion, but I just like Hellion, so if you for some reason don't like Solar Body, you can just go and swap this out for like Lightning Surge or Weaver's Call, or even Bleak Watcher could be quite interesting. But in the gameplay here you're seeing me use Hellion because it pairs nicely with Feed the Void, allowing all of my main abilities to grant me Devour, that being my grenade, melee, and class ability. Because if you don't know, Hellion, getting a kill, will actually proc Devour with Feed the Void, which is very, very handy. Now for my main fragments here, I have Facet of Protection, just for that extra bit of survivability. This states that while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage, and while Transcendent, this effect is increased. Next, I have Facet of Hope, where whilst I have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. This feeds into both Hellion and Feed the Void, because Devour is an elemental buff. The Devour will be feeding into my class ability, which then gives me Hellion, and then Hellion can feed back into Devour, so it's just a constant loop there, which is very good. Then you have Facet of Sacrifice, where whilst you have an Arc, Solar, or Void buff, i.e. Devour, ability Final Blows grant bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. Now, with this build in particular, I was running into a Darkness Transcendence energy problem, where I wasn't really generating it as quickly as I would like, but that can be supplemented by just changing maybe your grenade to a Threading Grenade or a Cold Snap Grenade, or just making use of more darkness aligned weapons. One in particular that comes to mind would be the brand new Rocket Frame Assisted Sidearm coming with Iron Banner next week, so that one might be a good thing to pair with this build, or just any Strand or Stasis weapon that you prefer. Now for the main fragment that I'm using, Facet of Dominance is very, very good with this build because it allows your Void Grenades to weaken and Arc Grenades to jolt. So if you use Storm Grenade, it will be jolting by default, and then your Transcendent Grenade, alongside being able to slow and freeze people, will now also weaken them, which is just so good here on Prismatic Warlock. And then for the final fragment, I have Facet of Balance, where rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy, and rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. This is just good for general ability uptime, so that's just why I'm using that. Other fragments you could use would be Facet of Grace if you like using kinetic weapons, so Bad Juju would be great with this fragment. Alongside that, defeating targets with your super grants you and thereby allies Transcendence energy, so that's probably a good one to use. I was preferring to use Facet of Protection instead, just for that extra survivability, because by default the general uptime of your Transcendence and super is pretty darn good with this build, so it wasn't really a necessity, but if you want it, it's there for you. And then in terms of if you're going into a GM with this build, Facet of Dawn could be a great option there, so that you are then able to deal with all of the known champion types. So Facet of Dawn will make you Radiant on powered melee hit, allowing you to deal with anti-barrier champions. Your super, StormDancer's, and Storm Grenade will be able to deal with overload champions by jolting them, and then your Hellion, as well as your Freezing Singularity, will be able to deal with unstoppable champions. So if you're going into GMs, that might be a good fragment for you to swap in instead. And apart from that, nothing else is really grabbing my attention, although if you want to add something to this build, feel free to mess about with it and playtest to your heart's content. Now, in terms of main weapons, I would probably recommend using Bad Juju with this build so that you have more supers, but you don't really need to use it. It's just a nice addition to add on. For those who don't know, Bad Juju kills, refill the magazine, increase damage for a short duration, and grant super energy based on the strength of String of Curses. So the more kills you get with Bad Juju, the more super energy you're going to be generating for yourself, which with StormDancer's Brace, you're going to be getting it a whole lot faster. You're going to get half your super energy back after your super ends, and then just a couple Bad Juju kills, and you'll be back to using your Storm Trance, which is just a very, very fun loop. But you don't really need to use it, like I said. Other weapons probably would do you great, or just any other exotic weapons that you prefer to use. I was using a Embraced Identity just because I don't have anything else good in this secondary slot, and then I obviously have the Chill Inhibitor here, which is the roll from Banshee, which you can buy right now. One comes with Envious Arsenal bait and switch with spike grenades, and it's just really, really good overall. Now, in terms of artifact stuff, I wasn't really using anything too mind-blowing here. This artifact, this episode, isn't actually all that great, unless you're using just stasis-focused stuff. Arc compounding could be quite good if you have any way of blinding stuff, but with this build, I don't. So not really taking advantage of that too much. Although you could take advantage of Retinal Burn, where rapid arc weapon precision hits consume armor charge to blind targets. That would be a good way of getting use of arc compounding, which allows your arc sources to deal increased damage to blinded targets. But I wasn't using that, so you don't really need to. Kinetic impacts and the concussive reload stuff with the weaken seems to be doing me just fine. So nothing really all that important here inside of the artifact. And then finally, for just armor mods and showcase, obviously I have Ashes to assets so that my grenades will give me more super energy. This pairs nicely with firepower and grenade kickstart, although one thing I want to mention is that I did read on Reddit that if you use heavy-handed with Storm Trance, this actually works, so your super kills or your super abilities within Storm Trance actually count as like melee kills, so that would probably be a great way to generate orbs, although I didn't actually test this myself, so just take that with a grain of salt. Other than that, I just have general survivability stuff here on my chest piece. Boots, same thing. I have Innovation, where it reduces my grenade cooldown each time I pick up an Orb of Power, and then Better Already, just for that extra survivability. And on the class item here, same stuff, Bomber, Outreach, and then a Reaper mod there, so I can throw down my Phoenix Dive and then generate some more orbs, which then feeds into my other abilities. And yeah, that's it for this build. I was really enjoying it inside of Contest of Elders. You can try it out in GMs. I've seen people use it and it does quite well. One thing that I do not like about this build is, of course, how ugly StormDancer's Brace is in terms of drip factor. It's not all that great. There is an ornament for it though if you're interested in that look, but I just think it makes it look even worse. So you're not going to be looking the best with this build, but it will be doing you a service. It was quite a fun build and I really enjoyed it. So if you can put your drip factor aside, very fun build to take advantage of inside of Contest of Elders. And with this build I was able to consistently get up to a Warden's Favor ×3, so I was getting max rewards here. So if you're struggling inside of the Prison of Elders activity, take advantage of this build and you'll be having a great time. Now if you want to copy this build for yourself, as always I'll have a dim link in the description so you can take advantage of it, mess about with it for yourself. But with all that being said, that's it from me here today. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and I'll catch you all in the next one.